Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, This Story Ain't Over. So as you guys may know, I've been through a reading slump recently, and I feel like the books that always put me in a reading slump are often really big fantasy books. But regardless of this, there's so many that have come out recently that I am super excited to read and just pick up soon at some point. A lot of these have had really great reviews, and a lot of my friends who've read them have loved them. But there's also a bunch of big fantasy books that I've bought before in the past that, I know a lot of people love and I really, really want to get to. So this video is basically my unofficial, intimidating TBR of fantasy books. So all of the fantasy books that I really, really want to pick up very soon. Most of these are actually adult fantasy books. I think there's like one YA, so that's also speaking to the type of fantasy that I've been picking up recently. Like I feel like I picked up a lot of YA fantasy, but I haven't had the chance to pick up as many adult fantasies, and I really want to change that. But before we get into the 9 different books on my fantasy TBR, I want to talk a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I absolutely love Skillshare. As you guys know, I've talked about so many of their classes and how it's enriched my life. Skillshare is an online learning community for creative and curious people where you can find a myriad of classes on different subjects, from graphic design to illustration to creative writing to marketing, like literally anything you can think of, there's a class for it on Skillshare. I found so many great classes and learned so many things through Skillshare, and it's definitely a tool that I want to keep in my belt for the future. But the class I want to tell you about today is Writing Fiction of 5 Exercises to Craft a Compelling Plot, which is taught by Lisa Ko, a writer herself. This is a really great class where she breaks down how you can make some really compelling plot in your fiction writing. And as you guys know, I'm currently writing a book, so I thought this was the perfect class to take so I can really hone the plot of my book. If you guys haven't checked out my first book writing video, definitely go check it out. The link is in the description. I talk about my work in progress and how it's going. But yeah, Skillshare is really awesome, as you guys already know if you've been watching my channel. So you should definitely go check out the link in my description, which is a really awesome exclusive offer. You get a full month free of Skillshare. It's a full month trial, so you can go discover as many classes as you want. You can really learn a lot in a month. Trust me. So definitely go check it out, pick up that skill that you've been wanting to learn for a while and just have a great time with it. So use that link. The first 1,000 people who click it will get a 1-month free trial. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And now let's get into the 9 books that are on my fantasy TBR. All right, so the first book on my fantasy TBR is The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I've talked about this multiple times before about how I want to read it, and I've just never gotten around to it. This is definitely one that I know is going to be fantastic. I've heard so many amazing things about it. And it was a Hugo Award winner, I believe. I think like all 3 books won the award, which is just really exciting. And all I really know about this is that it's written by a Black author and that a lot of people love it, and that it's just like really sort of mind-blowing is what I've heard. And that's about all I really need to know. I feel like sometimes with fantasies, it's just nice to not know too much and go into it and really discover the world. But if any of you have read the 5th season, I would love to hear your thoughts on it, and if you think I should pick it up very soon or what sort of mood it's perfect for. Because yeah, this is one that's been like on my shelves for years now, and I just really need to get to it. The next book is by an author I absolutely love, and I actually have 2 of her books on this list, but the first one is Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri, and I've had this book on my TBR for a very long time as well. It's been sitting on my shelves for like a couple years now, I want to say. I think like since 2019, and I honestly was so excited when I heard about this book because it is an Indian-inspired fantasy, and it involves an illegitimate daughter of an imperial governor. She is the main character, and she has some sort of magical powers, which I think is really interesting, but I also don't know too much about this one, so I really want to pick it up and see how it is, and I have a feeling that I'll really enjoy it. I follow the author on Twitter, and she just seems like really great, and I'm just really interested by this one. Like, I think it's going to be fantastic. I've heard really great things about the author and about like her books, especially her newest book, which I'll get to. And I feel like I haven't really read a South Asian inspired adult fantasy. Like, I've read a few YA ones, but never an adult one, I think. So I'm really interested to see how this would go and like if it would be better or that sort of thing. So yeah, if you have read this, let me know what your thoughts are. I really want to pick it up very soon. All right, and then the next book is Tasha Suri's most recent book, which is the Jasmine Throne. This is one that I've been super excited about. I've talked about it in multiple videos. It's been on a few TBRs as well, and I really do want to get to it soon because this one is also a South Asian Indian inspired fantasy, but it involves a sapphic romance, which we are always here for. I am super excited for this one because it involves a princess, sort of, who has been like locked up by her dictator brother, and then it also involves this poor working class girl who's like a maid, and the two of them are obviously going to fall for each other, but there's also a bit of like magical powers and all of this, and I am just super excited. I think it's gonna be fantastic, and I've heard only amazing things about this, so I know it's gonna be fantastic, and I literally just cannot wait. If you have read The Jasmine Throne, let me know what your thoughts are, and I would love to hear it from any of you. If you have read Tasha Suri's previous books, what you thought of them, because what I tend to do is that if people like one of an author's book like a lot more than the others, I tend to read the other ones first, like the not as good ones, before reading the really good one, so that I sort of build up my expectation rather than, you know, having my expectations so high with like the one that everyone loves and then being a little bit disappointed by the other ones. So that is my hope. I'll probably like read whichever one people like the least, even though I'm sure all of them are amazing. I am just super excited to read all of her books. She also has another book called Realm of Ash, which I also want to get to, but it's like lower on my priority list. I definitely want to get to Empire of Sand first. This one is apparently like a companion to Empire of Sand, but I think I really, really want to also get to The Jasmine Throne. So I don't know. I might end up going like Empire of Sand, Realm of Ash, and then Jasmine Throne, but we'll see. All right, the next book that I want to talk about is actually the only young adult book on this list, and that is A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. And this one I'm super excited for, but it's also like a big chunker, so that's why it's a little bit intimidating and one big reason why I haven't picked it up yet. But this one also features a sapphic romance, which I'm really excited about, and it involves fairies. And from what I remember from like the pitch of it, it's like The Cruel Prince meets the City of Bones, and it's like got that sort of underlying element of like supernatural beings like existing in our real world and the world of fairy, but it's also got like a murder mystery going on, which I find super, super interesting. But the thing that really sold me on this one is that it is set in Toronto, which, guys, if you don't know, I am from Toronto. I am a Canadian, so I was just super excited to find out that this book was set in Toronto, and I am just really excited to see how like the setting is going to come to life in this one. And like on the back you can see there's like the CN Tower, which I think is really cool. I love the idea of it being sort of like City of Bones but set in Canada, and it's got the sapphic romance, and I'm just really, really excited for it. And I'm interested in the murder mystery aspect as well, so I think overall it's going to be fantastic from what I can tell from this concept, but we'll see. If you have read A Dark and Hollow Star, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. All right, the next book that I want to talk about is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. So I've heard a lot of people liked Alex E. Harrow's other book, The 10,000 Doors of January, which I'm not particularly interested in, but this one seemed really cool because it involves witches. It is set in 1893, and it follows like a family of sisters who are witches, I think, and it's set in like New Salem during like a women's movement, I believe, and they're sort of hijacking it into a witches movement. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I don't know too much about this one. I did get it in an Aluma Crate box, so that's why I have it. I didn't purposely seek it out, but now that I have it, I really want to read it and try it out, and I think it might be really interesting. I also haven't read a witch book in a very, very long time. Like, I don't remember the last one I've read, and I think the last one was probably a YA, so I'm interested to try out a adult fantasy witch book and see how it goes. So again, if anyone has read this, I would love to know your thoughts. I've heard like mixed things about 10,000 Doors of January, so I would like to hear some thoughts on this. All right, the next book is one that I'm so excited for because I've heard so many amazing things, and that is The Unbroken by C.L. Clark. And oh my god, this sounds so freaking good. Basically, from what I can tell, it follows two different main characters. So one is Terrain, who is a soldier. She is stolen at birth and raised to be an assassin and killer, but she is sent back to her homeland to stop a like ongoing rebellion. And then the other main character is Aluka, who is a turncoat apparently, and she is trying to win back her throne, and I'm assuming this is in like Terrain's homeland is what I can tell, and the two of them are sort of crossing paths and getting involved. And from what I've heard, this is totally a military fantasy, which I am really excited for because, as you guys may know, I absolutely loved the Poppy War from earlier this year when I read like the entire series. I read Poppy War in December of 2020, and then I read the other two books January of this year. And I'm just feeling like I'm in the mood for another military fantasy because nothing has really blown me away like the Poppy War did. So I'm hoping that this one will give me slightly the same feeling at least. I know the Poppy War is quite unique, but I think that this one will be equally interesting and exciting. And I'm very, very here for the sapphic relationship that's going on here. So excited for that. Once again, if you guys have read the Unbroken. Let me know what you thought of it. I just need to know from you guys like which of these books I need to be picking up first and which one second, and like, you know, what order I should pick them up. All right, the next book is one that I basically know nothing about, but so many people have told me that this one is fantastic. So I was like, okay, I'll buy it because I apparently have no self-control. And that book is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. So there are two main reasons why I decided to pick this up. Number one is that this is an Asian inspired fantasy, and I absolutely love like fantasies that are not just like Western inspired. And then the second reason is that this involves a sapphic relationship from what I have heard. It doesn't say anything on like the description, or this copy that I have like basically has zero description on it. It's just like quotes from different authors. So yeah, I basically know nothing about it, but from what I've heard, it has a sapphic relationship in it, which I'm very excited for. As you can tell, I'm just like loving all of these fantasies that have sapphic relationships because like, why not? But yeah, I'm really excited for this one. I think it's gonna be fantastic. I know there's a little bit of like a political military aspect to this, and I'm kind of okay with not knowing too much about this one because that's sort of how I went into the Poppy War. I basically knew nothing about it in terms of like what happens or anything really. I just knew that it had like crazy plot twists and like some crazy characters, and I went into that one and absolutely fell in love with it. So I'm hoping I will feel the same with this one, knowing nothing and just jumping in and absolutely loving it. And yeah, I just keep seeing like different reviews roll in and everyone just keeps saying that they loved this. So I'm very excited. All right, and then the last two books that I have on here are both ones that have been on my TBR for years now. I bought them a while ago and just haven't gotten around to reading them. One I'm currently in the middle of, and that is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a big honker, and I started this like quite a few months ago. I was buddy reading with Monet from Life as Monet, and we got like a certain amount through, but then I just got really busy and never got around to finishing it, and I really do want to finish it soon, so I keep like borrowing the audiobook from the library but then never getting around to actually listening to it. So yeah, this is one that's just sort of like been unlucky for me. I know a lot of people love it, but I feel like I didn't connect to the first, I think like 100 pages that I've read all that much. Like I do like some of the characters and I think they're interesting and cool, and I think the world is really interesting. I just haven't really connected to the plot or storyline as much as I would have hoped. So I don't like feel a drive to finish it, and I feel like it was going a bit slow for me, but I do want to finish it. I do want to like, you know, read more of the series, and I know so many people love it, and I do really want to know like what actually happens in the book. So yeah, I'm hoping to finish this sometime soon. Let me know what you guys thought of City of Brass. Have any of you like experienced the same sort of feeling as me when you picked this up? Because I would love to know, because I do feel like I've heard so many people say that they loved it, but then I was like, oh, like I'm not loving it as much as I was hoping, but I do really want to finish it. But for those of you who don't know, the City of Brass is set in 18th century Cairo, and it follows Nari, who is a con woman, and she spends her days basically conning these wealthy nobles in the Ottoman Empire. And she's the type of person who doesn't really believe in magic, but when one day she accidentally summons this jinn warrior named Dara, her life sort of gets swept up into this crazy plot, and she finds out that there's a lot about herself and her parentage that she didn't know. And through it all, Nari and Dara end up having to flee Cairo from some evil forces, and they start making their way towards the legendary City of Brass named Devbad, which is the name of the trilogy, the Devbad trilogy. So yeah, that's like one main aspect, but I think the part that like I wasn't as interested in was the other perspective that's in the book, which I didn't know about going into the book, which is this prince or character, I forget now, who is actually from Devbad, who lives in the City of Brass, and you're sort of getting some of the political things going on there, which I thought was interesting. I just wasn't connecting to it as much as the parts with Nari and Dara. So yeah, I think that was just like my issue. I was just like sort of slogging through these other POV chapters, but I do really want to finish this off. All right, and then the final fantasy book that I want to pick up is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. There are many reasons why I still haven't picked this one up. I've had this on my shelves for like years now. I think I bought this like 2, 3, or 4 years ago, I think. And I bought it because I know a lot of people love this series. There are 2 books so far, but I think he intends to write a 3rd one as well. It's sort of a Game of Thrones situation where the author hasn't finished the series yet, but I have heard that this first one is equally fantastic, like just on its own, and I do really want to pick it up. I don't really know too much about it, though. I do feel like it is a like sort of epic saga of this one main character. I just know a lot of people love it, and so I want to try it out. And since I have the book, I do want to read it eventually. I just haven't gotten around to it. If any of you have read this or like have read the second book as well, let me know what you thought of it. And I really want to know if the second one sort of leaves off in a cliffhangery place and if I'm gonna be like really annoyed having to wait for the last one, because I think that's another reason why I haven't really tried to pick this up sooner. It's because I know that the series isn't finished, so I don't want to finish the first two books and then have to wait super long for the next one. So that's sort of how I'm feeling about this one. I think it's like a Western inspired fantasy world, and it follows like this one main character, and he is like had this really sort of epic heroic life. So in that way I'm like sort of interested, and it's also told in first person, which I find interesting for a fantasy book. So yeah, I'm curious to see how it will go, but I definitely think that this one is like lower on the priority list. All right, but those are all the books that I wanted to talk about today. All of the big fantasy books that are quite intimidating, but that I really want to read and that are on my fantasy TBR. So many of these are adult fantasies, and I just really want to get into this space and like reading more adult fantasy. I think after reading The Poppy War, like I really love that, and I just want to read like more sort of fantasies that have those like extra bits to it. I feel like sometimes YA fantasy can be a little bit limiting in like terms of content that they can do and in terms of like characters, because a lot of characters end up being young, but I think it's super interesting when you have some older characters and varying ages of characters in fantasy, and just like seeing how the world all comes together. So I'm curious to see how these books will sort of live up to that expectation that I have, and I'm just really excited to dive into all of them. I think they all have really interesting concepts or worlds or, you know, sapphic romances, and I'm just excited for all of that. So yeah, I definitely want to dig into all of them, and I hope that none of them will put me in a reading slump, because I do feel like fantasies tend to do that for me when I'm like slogging through the initial, you know, information dump, but I am excited to read them. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Definitely go check out the link in my description. The first 1,000 people who use it will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium. Definitely go check out my Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads in the description down below so you can get regular updates on my reading. I may do some sort of poll on Instagram to see which of these books I should read next, like the top 2 that I want to pick up, which one I should read next. So definitely go check out my Instagram so you can take part, and I will see you in my next video. So please remember that the story ain't over. Bye.